Hi. So one of my favourite synthesizer sounds is the sound of the Roland TB303, and it's a sound that I'd like to use more in my modular case. In fact, when I first bought this case, my intention was to build a kind of super 303 with additional effects and filter options, things like that. Over time I realised I can't take all of my synth stuff with me to uni, so I can't really take drum machines and other synths, stuff like that, and I quite enjoy the challenge of making whole tracks in one small modular system. And so the way my system's gone is more like a kind of mini live system now, and I'll probably talk about that a bit more in future videos, but I still want some 303 style sounds in there. So in the past I've used a wasp filter, which comes very close to a 303 sound and has some other interesting characteristics like the weird harmonics it generates, and it also has a high pass and band pass output, which is cool, but it's not exactly right and it just stops working a lot. Mine is currently broken again. I got given it broken. I'm going to fix it again soon. I think I know what's wrong with it, but I wanted something that's more 303 and a bit more reliable. I also sometimes use the wave folder with the internal oscillator on my Parasite's loaded warps module. Also gets close, but it's probably even further away from the 303 sound than the Wasp is. I can get pretty close with the formant mode on Plats as well, but I want to use Plats for chords and lead sounds, so I need something dedicated to do 303 sounds. So I figured it was time to just get a 303 clone of some sort, so that's what I've done. So when I was looking for which one to get, I was limiting myself to Eurorack because of the reasons I mentioned earlier. I want to keep it all within my Eurorack, so I wasn't going to get the Behringer clone or any of the other 303 clones. An obvious choice for the full voice is the Acid Lab M303, but it's big and expensive, and actually I have most of the parts to make a 303, and I feel like the most crucial thing is the filter, which is what I'm missing. So it didn't really make sense to get a full 303 voice when I have a saw and square VCO in the warps, I've got the dope for VCA, I've got a slew in the disting, and I've got an envelope, so it's only the filter I needed really. I didn't want anything too expensive, so the two options I narrowed it down to were the dope for A103 and the MRG Synths low pass filter A. Both are £75 fully built. The dope for one has one more CV input, it has 3, but I find that 2's usually enough. Like most of the time I'm putting 1 input into the CV control of a filter, sometimes 2, but I don't feel like I'd actually use the third one. The MRG has a more useful gain control because it actually saturates the filter, whereas from what I can see the dope for one is just a volume control, which isn't that useful to me because I use a mixer. The dope for is also a truer 303 clone, but I've watched some demos and I think they both get close enough for me, so that's not a huge issue for me. I added to this that their MRG is half the size, has a 1 volt per octave tuned CV input. It also has the envelope CV attenuator in a really nice position at the bottom of the module to sort of perform that. And it's available at just £50 if you buy it in kit form, so that's what I went with. You can also get just the IC chips and the panel and PCB for £20–25, but I didn't want to source all the parts, so I've got the full kit. Okay, so this is the kit. Pack's really small in this little bag that it's shipped in. So yeah, I'll get stuff out. It doesn't come with instructions, but there are instructions on the website. It also looks pretty well labelled, like I can see that there's little labels on all of the components and stuff, so maybe you'd manage without the instructions, but yeah, I checked the website and there are some instructions, so I'll be following them just to be safe. So it looks like there's a bag of jacks and pots, which I assume go on, I assume that's most of the things that go on the sort of control board. Bag of components, so I assume that makes up the sort of main circuit board, and then some nuts and knobs and stuff. And then there's all the ICs that you use in an anti-static bag, and then yeah, these are the PCBs in the panel. Okay, so this is the finished module all plugged in. It worked first time. So I'm going to run through all of the features and then have a little jam with it. But first, I'll get the sweeps out the way, because I know that's what you have to start with on a filter demo. So I'll take that output to my mixer and then plug the output of Platts into the input. So I'm just sending a static saw wave in, and I'll do a sweep with a few different resonances and stuff like that. We'll start with the gain on 0. Gain halfway up. So you can hear that's slightly more saturated, and then on full it'll really push the filter. I'm going to do the rest of the demo sort of just past halfway on that, because I think that's where it's kind of not pushing it too hard, but still getting a bit of drive. So we'll try sort of a third resonance. Just past half. Bit more. And then full resonance. So realistically, when you're using this, you're going to be using it in a sort of 303 context. So you probably will have just a saw wave like I've got going through here, but with some slides and obviously some sort of melody playing. So I'm going to send a sequence to Platts with some slides and stuff to give a more realistic example of what it might sound like. So yeah, straight away it's got that kind of 303 sound, but where it really starts to sound like it is when you feed it an envelope as well. So that's the next thing that I'm going to do. So the filter has two CV inputs. It has this one, which is tuned loosely as volt per octave. So if you want it to track along with your pitch sequence, you can feed the pitch sequence into there as well. That's not something I'm going to do because I think you know what that sounds like, but you've got that as a second CV input if you need it. But the envelope CV input is also controlled by this attenuator, which is quite performable for adding more and more envelope like you would with the 303. So I'll plug that in. So just to show what the other input can do, I'll also plug in a LFO into there.
which I determined to give up forever.